In the sleek, glass-walled boardroom of Horizon Innovations, high above Seattle's shimmering skyline, Elizabeth Harper stood on the precipice of disaster. At 40, she was a billionaire CEO whose name echoed from Silicon Valley to Tokyo, her empire built on relentless ambition and razor-sharp strategy. But today, her heart raced as she faced a $75 million deal with a Japanese conglomerate, teetering on collapse. The translator hadn't shown, and the clock was ticking. Her polished confidence cracked under the weight of the moment until the soft hum of a janitor's cart broke the silence. Daniel Rivera, a single father with calloused hands and quiet eyes, pushed his mop into the shadows of the 45th floor. Unseen, uncelebrated, he was the last person anyone would call a hero. Yet, as Elizabeth's world unraveled, Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady, revealing a fluency in Japanese that stunned the room. What no one knew was that this janitor, scraping by to raise his daughter, held a past that could rewrite Horizon's future. In that moment, two lives collided, sparking a journey of courage, love, and redemption that would shake the corporate world to its core. Elizabeth Harper adjusted her tailored blazer for the third time, her fingers betraying a tremor she'd never admit. The boardroom on the 45th floor of Horizon Innovations' Seattle headquarters buzzed with tension. Across the polished mahogany table sat representatives from Saito Enterprises, a Japanese conglomerate whose $75 million contract could catapult Horizon into Asia's tech market. But the deal was unraveling. The translator, a critical bridge for this high-stakes negotiation, was stuck in a snowstorm halfway across the city. Elizabeth's team exchanged panicked glances as Mr. Tanaka, Sato's lead negotiator, spoke in rapid Japanese, his tone sharp with impatience. Elizabeth caught fragments, terms like commitment and reliability, but without translation. She was drowning in a sea of miscommunication. Her empire, built over a decade of calculated risks, teetered on the edge. She clutched her tablet, its screen displaying the contract that could secure 2,000 jobs. "We need to stall," she whispered to her CFO, but her voice lacked its usual steel. The room felt suffocating, the Seattle skyline beyond the windows mocking her with its calm. Mr. Tanaka's team began packing their briefcases, their movements deliberate, signaling the end. Elizabeth's mind raced for a solution, but none came. She'd faced hostile takeovers, market crashes, and boardroom betrayals, but this was different, a failure of connection, not strategy. Her assistant, Jennifer, burst in, apologizing profusely, but the damage was done. The Saito team stood, bowing curtly, their faces unreadable. Elizabeth forced a smile, her heart sinking as she calculated the fallout: lost revenue, eroded trust, and a tarnished reputation in Asia. She followed them to the elevator, her heels clicking on the marble floor, each step heavier than the last. "Please, give us another chance," she said, knowing they couldn't understand. The elevator doors began to close, and with them, her hopes. Then, a soft voice cut through the silence. "Suma Mason," it said, clear and confident. Elizabeth turned to see Daniel Rivera, the night janitor, standing by his cleaning cart. His worn jacket and quiet demeanor belied the authority in his tone. He spoke again in flawless Japanese, addressing Mr. Tanaka directly. The Saito team paused, their eyes narrowing with curiosity. Daniel's words flowed effortlessly, explaining the delay with sincerity and proposing a rescheduled meeting. Mr. Tanaka's stern expression softened, and he nodded, replying in Japanese. Daniel translated for Elizabeth. "They'll return tomorrow at 9 a.m., but they expect full preparedness." Elizabeth stared, her mind reeling. The janitor she'd barely noticed, whose name she'd only seen on a payroll sheet, had just saved her company from catastrophe. "How do you know Japanese?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel's eyes met hers, steady and unassuming. "I studied it in college, ma'am. I've lived in Tokyo." The elevator doors closed, leaving Elizabeth and Daniel in the quiet hallway. She saw him anew, not as a janitor, but as a man with a story she needed to uncover. This moment, she realized, was no accident. It was the spark of something extraordinary. A collision of worlds that would redefine her company and her heart. The next morning, the boardroom hummed with cautious optimism. Elizabeth had barely slept, her mind replaying Daniel Rivera's intervention. She'd called him at dawn, asking him to join the Saito meeting, not as a janitor, but as a translator. Now, Daniel stood at the head of the table, his janitor's uniform replaced by a borrowed suit that fit awkwardly on his broad shoulders. His dark eyes scanned the room, calm but alert, as Mr. Tanaka and his team settled in. Elizabeth watched, her pulse quickening, not from fear but from a strange certainty that this man could shift the tide. Daniel began translating, his voice steady, weaving English and Japanese with a precision that silenced the room. But it wasn't just his fluency that captivated, it was his cultural finesse. When Mr. Tanaka raised concerns about production timelines, Daniel didn't just translate, he contextualized, explaining to Elizabeth that in Japanese business, haste signals poor planning. Emphasize your long-term vision, he whispered during a pause. Elizabeth nodded, adjusting her pitch to highlight Horizon's meticulous R&D process. The Saito team leaned forward, their skepticism melting into interest. Daniel's translations carried not just words but conviction, bridging cultural gaps with an ease that felt almost supernatural. By noon, Mr. Tanaka extended his hand, sealing the $75 million deal with a rare smile. The room erupted in restrained applause, but Elizabeth's eyes were on Daniel. You didn't just translate, she said later, pulling him aside. You understood them. Daniel shrugged, his humility disarming. I've always been good at listening, Ms. Harper. Over coffee in her office, Daniel revealed fragments of his past. A linguistics degree from UCLA, a year teaching in Tokyo, and a return to Seattle after his wife's death left him raising Lily alone. Financial hardship had forced him into janitorial work, his credentials buried under the weight of survival. Elizabeth listened, her admiration growing. This man, invisible to her world, had a mind sharper than most of her executives. I want you on my team, she said, her tone leaving no room for debate. Director of Global Relations. You'll handle our international partnerships. Daniel's jaw tightened, hope flickering in his eyes before caution took over. Ms. Harper, I'm grateful, but I'm just a janitor. I don't have the credentials for your world. Elizabeth leaned forward, her voice firm. Credentials don't win deals. You do. She offered a salary that made his breath catch, enough to secure Lily's future. Daniel hesitated, thinking of his daughter's dreams of becoming a doctor. I'll do it, he said finally, but only if I can still be there for Lily. Elizabeth nodded, sensing a partnership forming, not just professional, but something deeper. As Daniel left, she watched him, her mind racing. Horizon Innovations was on the cusp of global expansion, and Daniel Rivera was no longer invisible. He was the key to unlocking markets from Singapore to London. But more than that, he was a reminder of what she'd forgotten. That talent hides in the most unexpected places, and sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal it. The Seattle skyline glittered outside. But Elizabeth's focus was inward, on the man who'd just rewritten her company's future, and perhaps her own. Daniel Rivera's first week as Director of Global Relations was a whirlwind. Elizabeth Harper had transformed a corner office for him, complete with a view of Puget Sound, but Daniel felt like an imposter in the sleek space. His old janitor's cart was gone, replaced by a leather-bound planner and a team of assistants. Yet, his mind was sharp, and Elizabeth's trust in him was unwavering. She tasked him with spearheading Horizon Innovations' expansion into Singapore and London, markets critical to the company's $200 million growth plan. Daniel dove in, his linguistic prowess and cultural instincts proving invaluable. In Singapore, he navigated a tense negotiation with a tech consortium, using his Mandarin fluency to clarify Horizon's AI integration strategy. His ability to anticipate cultural nuances, offering a ceremonial gift to seal the deal, earned a $30 million contract. In London, he charmed a skeptical British firm with his Oxford-acquired English accent, securing a partnership for Horizon's cloud platform. Elizabeth watched his progress with pride, her boardroom briefings now peppered with praise for our secret weapon. But Daniel's success came at a cost. Late nights in the office meant missed bedtimes with Lily, his 8-year-old daughter. She'd call from their modest Tacoma apartment, her voice small. Papa, are you coming to my science fair? Daniel's heart ached, promising to make it, but deadlines loomed. Elizabeth noticed his strain, inviting him to her office one evening. You're doing extraordinary work, Daniel, she said, her green eyes softening. But you look exhausted. Daniel confessed his struggle, showing her a photo of Lily, her bright smile framed by pigtails. She's my world, Miss Harper. I can't let her down. Elizabeth's expression shifted. a flicker of vulnerability breaking her polished facade. "Call me Elizabeth," she said. "And I understand. My father was a workaholic. I barely saw him growing up." Their conversation lingered, personal and unguarded, a spark igniting between them. Elizabeth began seeking Daniel's input beyond deals, valuing his perspective on strategy and culture. He, in turn, admired her resilience, sensing a loneliness behind her success. One night, after a grueling session preparing for a London pitch, they shared takeout in her office, laughing over shared stories of failure and grit. The air crackled with unspoken attraction, but both hesitated, bound by professional lines. Daniel's rise wasn't without friction. Some executives, like James Carter, the COO, whispered about his unearned promotion, their Ivy League egos bruised by a former janitor's ascent. Elizabeth shut down the gossip, but Daniel felt the weight of their skepticism. He pushed harder, determined to prove his worth. By month's end, Horizon stock had climbed 15%, and Daniel's name was on every analyst's lips. Elizabeth called him to her office, handing him a bonus check, $50,000. "For Lily's college fund," she said, her smile warm. Daniel's throat tightened. "Thank you, Elizabeth. This changes everything." As he left, Elizabeth watched him, her heart stirring. Daniel was no longer just an asset. He was a partner, a confidant, a man who made her feel seen. But with Horizon's global ambition soaring and Lily's needs pulling at Daniel, the balance was fragile. Seattle's skyline glowed, but for Elizabeth and Daniel, the real light was the connection they were only beginning to understand, a connection that would soon face its greatest test. Daniel Rivera's new life was a paradox of triumph and sacrifice. As Horizon Innovation's Director of Global Relations, he jetted between Seattle, Singapore, and London, closing deals that cemented the company's global footprint. His office buzzed with activity. His inbox flooded with invitations from industry titans. But at home, in their Tacoma apartment, 8-year-old Lily's world was shrinking. Daniel missed her piano recital, her science fair, and the nightly ritual of reading her favorite book, Charlotte's Web. "Papa, you're always gone," Lily said one evening, her voice trembling over the phone as Daniel sat in a Singapore hotel. His chest tightened, guilt eclipsing the thrill of a $40 million deal. Back in Seattle, Elizabeth Harper noticed the shadows under Daniel's eyes. Their late-night strategy sessions had become a ritual, often stretching into personal confessions over coffee. Elizabeth shared her own regrets, years spent chasing success while her mother faded from cancer, unseen. "I don't want that for you and Lily," she told him, her voice soft. Daniel nodded, showing her a drawing Lily had mailed him, a stick-figure family, him and Lily under a rainbow. "She's my reason for everything," he said. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Elizabeth felt a pull toward Daniel, his warmth and authenticity a contrast to her guarded world. She caught herself smiling when he entered a room, her heart racing when their hands brushed during a presentation. But she pushed the feelings down, aware of the professional boundaries between CEO and director. Daniel, too, sensed the spark. His dreams now tinged with Elizabeth's laughter, but Lily's needs anchored him. One rainy Seattle night, as they reviewed a London pitch, Elizabeth opened up further. "I built Horizon to prove I could," she admitted, staring at the city lights. "But sometimes, I wonder who I'm proving it to." Daniel met her gaze, his voice low. "You're enough, Elizabeth. You don't need to prove anything." The moment crackled, their faces inches apart, but a knock from Jennifer, Elizabeth's assistant, broke the spell. The tension lingered, unresolved. Meanwhile, office politics simmered. James Carter, the COO, grew openly hostile, undermining Daniel in meetings. "He's a janitor playing executive," Carter sneered to colleagues, his ambition eyeing Daniel's role. Elizabeth defended Daniel fiercely, but the friction drained him. He began questioning his place in Horizon's cutthroat world. Lily's calls grew sadder, her questions sharper. "Do you love your job more than me, Papa?" she asked one night. Daniel's heart shattered. He promised to take her to the Seattle Aquarium that weekend. But a last-minute crisis in London loomed. Elizabeth, sensing his turmoil, offered to adjust his schedule, but Daniel refused, determined to prove he could handle both worlds. Their bond deepened. Yet both hesitated to name the feelings growing between them. One evening, as Daniel showed Elizabeth a photo of Lily in her school play, their fingers lingered, the silence electric. "You're a good father," Elizabeth said, her voice catching. Daniel smiled, but his eyes betrayed worry. Horizon's success was soaring, but his personal life was fraying. As he left for London to salvage a faltering deal, Elizabeth watched him go, her heart heavy. She sensed a storm brewing, not just in business, but in the fragile connection they were building. A connection that would soon face a trial neither could foresee. Daniel Rivera stepped off the plane at Heathrow, the weight of Horizon Innovation's future on his shoulders. Elizabeth had sent him to London to salvage a $50 million partnership with Baxter Technologies, a British firm critical to Horizon's European expansion. The deal had soured after a Horizon negotiator, James Carter, insulted Baxter's traditional approach during a video call, calling it outdated. Baxter's CEO, Sir Henry Baxter, threatened to pull out, labeling Horizon arrogant Americans. Elizabeth's voice had been urgent on the phone. "Daniel, you're our only hope. They trust you." Now, in Baxter's oak-paneled boardroom, Daniel faced a room of stern faces. His borrowed suit felt tighter, but his resolve was iron. Speaking in crisp British English, honed during his UCLA exchange year at Oxford, Daniel opened with an apology. "Horizon misstepped," he said, his tone sincere. "We respect your legacy and seek to learn from it." Sir Henry's eyes narrowed, but he listened. Daniel wove cultural nuance into his pitch, referencing Baxter's history of precision engineering and aligning it with Horizon's AI vision. He offered a joint R&D lab, a gesture of partnership, not dominance. The room softened, and by evening, Sir Henry extended a handshake. "Your humility is rare, Mr. Rivera," he said. "We'll move forward." Daniel called Elizabeth from his hotel, his voice tired but triumphant. "The deal's back on," he reported. Elizabeth's relief was palpable, her laughter warm through the line. "You're incredible, Daniel." The call lingered, personal moments slipping in, her mention of a Seattle cafe she loved, his story of Lily's latest drawing. The distance only sharpened their connection, but Daniel's heart tugged toward home. Lily's bedtime was hours ago, and he'd missed another promise. Back in Seattle, Elizabeth faced her own challenges. James Carter's resentment boiled over, his whispers of Daniel's overreach poisoning the executive team. Elizabeth shut him down, but the tension gnawed at her. She began to see Daniel not just as a colleague, but as a partner in her vision, his authenticity grounding her ambition. Yet, she feared crossing the line, her CEO role a barrier to her heart. Daniel's London success rippled through Horizon, boosting stock prices and silencing some critics. Sir Henry invited him to a private dinner, a rare honor, where they discussed family over wine. "You remind me of my son," Sir Henry said, his voice thick. He valued people over profit. Daniel smiled, thinking of Lily, but guilt gnawed at him. He'd promised her a weekend together. But another trip loomed. On his flight back, Daniel studied Baxter's contract, but his mind drifted to Elizabeth. Her strength, her vulnerability, the way she believed in him. It stirred something he hadn't felt since his wife's death. Landing in Seattle, he found a voicemail from Lily's teacher. "Lily's been quiet lately. She misses you." Daniel's chest ached. He drove straight to Elizabeth's office, needing her counsel. "I'm failing her," he admitted, his voice raw. Elizabeth touched his arm, her eyes soft. "You're not. We'll find a way." Their hands lingered, the air charged, but duty called them back. As Daniel left, Elizabeth watched, sensing their bond was on the brink of something unstoppable, a force that would soon face a crisis beyond any boardroom. The Seattle rain fell in sheets as Daniel Rivera raced through Horizon Innovation's headquarters, his phone pressed to his ear. Elizabeth Harper stood beside him, her face pale. As Lily's school principal delivered the news, Lily had a severe allergic reaction at lunch. "She's at Seattle Children's Hospital." Daniel's world tilted. Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, was his anchor, her laughter the reason he'd endured years of scrubbing floors. Now, she was fighting for breath, and he was 20 miles away. Elizabeth grabbed her coat. "We're going now," she said, her CEO authority cutting through the chaos. The drive to the hospital was a blur, Daniel's hand shaking as he dialed Lily's doctor. Elizabeth navigated traffic, her calm voice grounding him. "She'll be okay, Daniel. We're almost there." At the hospital, they found Lily in a stark white room, an oxygen mask over her small face. Dr. Emmeline Gwynn greeted them, her tone steady. "Lily's stable. It was an undiagnosed peanut allergy triggered by a classmate's snack. She's responding to treatment. Daniel collapsed into a chair, tears streaming as he held Lily's hand. Elizabeth stood close, her hand on his shoulder, her own eyes wet. Lily stirred, her voice weak. "Papa? Miss Elizabeth." Daniel kissed her forehead. "We're here, Mija." Lily's eyes flickered to Elizabeth. "You came too." Elizabeth knelt, her voice breaking. "Of course, sweetheart. Your family." The word hung in the air, raw and true. In that moment, Daniel and Elizabeth saw each other clearly, not as boss and employee, but as two people bound by love and fear. The hospital's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows, but their connection glowed. Over the next hours, they took turns at Lily's bedside, sharing stories to keep her spirits up. Elizabeth told of her childhood camping trips, Daniel of Lily's first bike ride. Their laughter mingled, a fragile shield against the scare, but the crisis cracked open their hearts. As Lily slept, Daniel turned to Elizabeth in the quiet room. "I've been running from this," he said, his voice low. "I love you, Elizabeth. I have for months." Elizabeth's breath caught, her walls crumbling. "I love you too," she whispered, her hand finding his. They stood, inches apart. The weight of their confession electric. But a nurse's interruption broke the moment, calling for paperwork. Reality crashed back. Daniel's phone buzzed with urgent messages from Horizon. James Carter demanding updates on a Singapore deal. Elizabeth saw his stress and stepped in, delegating tasks to her team. "Focus on Lily," she said. "I've got this." Her strength steadied him, but the hospital stay revealed deeper truths. Lily's allergy required lifestyle changes, and Daniel feared his global role would pull him further from her. Elizabeth, too, grappled with her feelings, knowing their love could complicate Horizon's future. As Lily was discharged, her small hand in theirs, they exchanged a look, unspoken promises passing between them. Seattle's skyline loomed as they drove home, but a new storm was brewing. Horizon faced a threat that would test their love and loyalty, a corporate predator circling, ready to tear their world apart. In that hospital room, Daniel and Elizabeth had found each other. But the fight for their future was only beginning. Back at Horizon Innovations, the air was thick with dread. Elizabeth Harper stood before her executive team in the Seattle boardroom. Her voice steady despite the news. Apex Ventures, a ruthless private equity firm, had launched a hostile takeover bid. Their offer, $2 billion, 35% above market value, tempted shareholders, threatening to dismantle Horizon's legacy. Elizabeth's empire, built on innovation and trust, faced annihilation. "They want our patents, our partnerships," she said, her green eyes blazing. "We have 72 hours to counter." Daniel Rivera, now indispensable as Director of Global Relations, sat across from her, his mind racing. Lily's hospital scare still lingered, but duty called. He'd promised Elizabeth he'd fight for Horizon, just as she'd fought for his daughter. The boardroom buzzed with panic, but Daniel's calm focus cut through. "Apex underestimates our international alliances," he said, displaying projections on the screen. "Our Singapore and London deals add $300 million in unrealized value." Elizabeth nodded, her trust in him absolute. But the stakes were brutal. Apex's CEO, Victor Kane, was a corporate shark, known for stripping companies bare. Losing meant layoffs, broken partnerships. In the end of Horizon's mission, Daniel proposed a bold counter: accelerate global expansion, leveraging their Asian and European ties to make Horizon untouchable. The plan hinged on trust Apex couldn't buy. Elizabeth backed him, but the clock was merciless. That night, they worked late, strategizing in her office. Daniel's cultural insights shaped their pitch, emphasized Horizon's human-centric values to sway shareholders. Elizabeth marveled at his brilliance, her heart swelling. "You're saving us again," she said, her hand brushing his. The touch lingered, but duty pulled them back. Outside, Seattle's lights glittered, oblivious to their battle. Daniel's phone buzzed, Lily's babysitter, confirming she was safe. He exhaled, refocusing. Elizabeth shared her own fears. "If we lose Horizon, I lose myself." Daniel met her gaze. "You won't. We're in this together." Their partnership, now laced with love, fueled their resolve. But Apex's tactics grew dirtier. Rumors swirled that they'd bribed analysts to tank Horizon's stock. Elizabeth's team scrambled, but morale faltered. Daniel called Singapore and London partners, securing verbal commitments for expanded deals. His charm and sincerity, honed in Tokyo's classrooms and Seattle's shadows, kept allies loyal. Yet, the pressure was crushing. Daniel missed Lily's bedtime again, her voicemail a dagger. "Papa, I miss you." Elizabeth, sensing his pain, offered to fly Lily to the office for a weekend visit. "She needs you," she said, her voice soft. Daniel's gratitude deepened his love, but fear gnawed at him. Could he save Horizon without losing his daughter? As they prepared for the shareholder meeting, Elizabeth noticed James Carter's absence. The COO's hostility had grown, his loyalty questionable. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on Daniel's plan. He drafted a presentation showcasing Horizon's global vision, his words infused with passion. Elizabeth watched, pride mingling with love. They were a team. Unbreakable, or so they thought. As they finalized their strategy, a late-night email from an anonymous source landed in Elizabeth's inbox. "Check Carter's files. He's not what he seems." The words chilled her. Apex's shadow loomed larger, and within Horizon, a traitor was stirring, ready to tip the scales. Daniel and Elizabeth braced for war, their love and legacy hanging in the balance. The Seattle dawn broke gray and cold, mirroring the dread in Elizabeth Harper's heart. The anonymous email had led her to James Carter's files, and the truth was devastating. Horizon COO had leaked critical deal details to Apex Ventures. Financial projections, partnership terms, even Daniel Rivera's Singapore strategy, all fed to the enemy. Elizabeth sat in her office, the betrayal cutting deeper than Apex's takeover bid. Carter, her trusted deputy for 5 years, had sold Horizon for a rumored $10 million payout. Daniel joined her, his face grim as she shared the news. "He's been against me from the start," Daniel said, recalling Carter's snide remarks. "But this," Elizabeth's voice trembled, "he could destroy us." The shareholder meeting was in 48 hours, and Apex was leveraging Carter's leaks to sway investors, painting Horizon as unstable. Daniel's global alliances, Singapore, London, Tokyo, were Horizon's lifeline, but Carter's betrayal exposed their vulnerabilities. Elizabeth called an emergency board meeting, confronting Carter. He denied everything, his Harvard polish masking deceit, but the evidence was ironclad. "You're fired," Elizabeth said, her voice ice. Carter stormed out, vowing revenge. The boardroom reeled, trust fractured. Daniel stepped up, his calm authority steadying the room. "We can still win," he said, outlining a revised plan. "We double down on our partner's trust. Apex can't replicate that." Elizabeth marveled at his resilience, but fear gnawed at her. Carter's leaks had weakened their pitch, and Apex was circling. Daniel worked through the night, calling international allies. In Singapore, he reassured partners, emphasizing Horizon's integrity. In London, Sir Henry Baxter pledged support, moved by Daniel's honesty. But the strain was crushing. Daniel's thoughts drifted to Lily, safe with her babysitter but lonely. He'd missed her school play, her voice small on the phone. "Papa, are you coming home soon?" Guilt clawed at him. But Horizon's survival demanded everything. Elizabeth, too, was unraveling. Carter's betrayal shook her confidence, her empire built on loyalty now tainted. She leaned on Daniel, their late-night sessions a refuge. One evening, as they reviewed shareholder data, Elizabeth broke. "I trusted him, Daniel. How did I miss this?" Daniel took her hand, his touch steady. "You built something worth fighting for. We'll get through this." Their eyes locked, love unspoken but palpable. The moment was fleeting. Jennifer burst in with urgent news. Apex had upped their bid to $2.5 billion. Panic surged, but Daniel's mind raced. "We pivot," he said. "We announce a global consortium, tying our partners into a shared equity model. It makes us too valuable to acquire." Elizabeth nodded, her trust in him absolute. They drafted the proposal, Daniel's cultural insights shaping a narrative of unity. But Carter's shadow lingered. Rumors spread that he'd joined Apex, feeding them insider tactics. Elizabeth's team scrambled, morale crumbling. Daniel called Lily, promising a weekend together, but his voice cracked. Elizabeth overheard, her heart aching. "Go to her," she urged. "We'll handle this." Daniel refused, his loyalty to Horizon, and Elizabeth, unshakable. As they prepared for the shareholder vote, Seattle's skyline loomed, a reminder of what was at stake. Carter's betrayal had raised the stakes, but Daniel and Elizabeth were a united front. Their love, tested by crisis, was their strength. The final battle loomed, and with it, a chance to rewrite Horizon's destiny or lose everything. The shareholder meeting filled Horizon Innovation's Seattle auditorium with tension, the air heavy with the weight of a $2.5 billion takeover bid from Apex Ventures. Elizabeth Harper stood at the podium, her voice steady but her heart racing. Beside her, Daniel Rivera, once a janitor, now the architect of Horizon's survival, prepared to unveil their counter-strategy. Apex's leaks, fueled by James Carter's betrayal, had swayed some investors. But Daniel's global vision was Horizon's last hope. He took the stage, his presence commanding despite the borrowed suit. Horizon isn't just a company, he began, his voice resonant. It's a global network built on trust. He displayed projections, $500 million in revenue from Singapore, London, and Tokyo partnerships. Apex sees us as a prize to dismantle. We see a future where our allies share our success. Daniel proposed a global consortium, offering equity to international partners, making Horizon 2 interconnected to acquire. His cultural fluency shone, weaving stories of Singapore's innovation, London's precision, and Tokyo's resilience. Shareholders leaned forward, captivated. Elizabeth watched, pride swelling. Daniel's journey, from mopping floors to commanding this room, was her vision realized. But the stakes were dire. Apex's CEO, Victor Kane, sat in the front row, his smirk a silent threat. Daniel fielded questions with poise, countering doubts about Carter's leaks. Trust isn't bought, he said. It's earned. Our partners choose us because we listen. Elizabeth followed, her passion igniting the room. Horizon is our legacy, she said. Together, we're unstoppable. The vote was close, but Daniel's consortium won, with 60% backing Horizon. Apex's bid collapsed, their stock plummeting as investors fled. The auditorium erupted in cheers, but Daniel and Elizabeth shared a quiet look, their victory personal as much as professional. That night, they celebrated in Elizabeth's office, Seattle's skyline aglow. You did it, Elizabeth said, her voice thick. Daniel shook his head. We did it. Their hands touched, the air electric. But Lily's needs loomed. Daniel had promised her a weekend, and he intended to keep it. Elizabeth insisted he go, her support unwavering. You're her father first, she said. Daniel's gratitude deepened his love, but challenges remained. Carter's betrayal had exposed weaknesses, and Horizon's global push required constant travel. Daniel feared losing Lily to his ambition, while Elizabeth grappled with her role as CEO and her heart's pull toward Daniel. They agreed to streamline operations, delegating to trusted allies. Daniel called Singapore and London, securing final commitments. Sir Henry Baxter sent a personal note. You've redefined partnership, Daniel. Back home, Lily greeted Daniel with a hug, her smile healing his fatigue. Papa, you're my hero, she said. Elizabeth joined them for dinner, her laughter blending with Lily's. The trio felt like family, but Daniel sensed Elizabeth's hesitation. Their love was real. But her CEO mantle weighed heavy. As they planned Horizon's next phase, a new threat loomed. Kane vowed to regroup, targeting Horizon's Asian markets. Daniel and Elizabeth braced for battle, their bond stronger than ever. Seattle's lights shimmered, a testament to their triumph, but the true victory was their unity. Horizon was safe, but their greatest challenge, balancing love, family, and legacy, lay ahead, a journey they'd face together. 6 months after Horizon Innovation's victory over Apex Ventures, Seattle buzzed with anticipation for the company's annual gala. The rooftop garden of Horizon's headquarters sparkled under fairy lights, employees and global partners mingling in celebration. Elizabeth Harper, radiant in a navy gown, greeted guests. But her eyes sought Daniel Rivera. He stood by the bar, his suit now tailored, laughing with Lily, who twirled in a sparkly dress. Horizon's global consortium had soared, generating $700 million in revenue, cementing its untouchable status. Daniel's vision had transformed the company, but his heart was on something more personal tonight. Elizabeth joined them, kneeling to compliment Lily's dress. You're the star tonight, she said, her smile warm. Lily giggled, whispering to Daniel, Papa, tell her. Daniel's pulse quickened. He'd planned this moment for weeks, the weight of a velvet box in his pocket. The gala paused as he took the microphone, his voice steady. Horizon is more than a company, he said. eyes on Elizabeth. It's a family, and tonight, I want to make mine complete. He turned to Elizabeth, dropping to one knee. Elizabeth Harper, you saw me when I was invisible. You gave me a chance, a home, a future. Will you marry me? The crowd gasped, Lily clapping wildly. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears, her CEO armor gone. Yes, she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel slipped a diamond ring on her finger, and they kissed, the crowd erupting in cheers. Lily rushed to them, hugging both, her joy sealing their bond. The moment was perfect. But challenges lingered. Horizon's global push demanded travel, and Daniel struggled to balance his role with fatherhood. Elizabeth, now his fiancée, shared the load. Restructuring teams to prioritize family. They moved into a Seattle townhouse, Lily's room filled with books and dreams of becoming a doctor. But shadows remained. Victor Kane, Apex's CEO, launched a smear campaign, targeting Horizon's Asian partnerships. Daniel countered with diplomatic finesse, flying to Singapore to reassure allies. Elizabeth joined him, their partnership seamless. Back home, Lily's school play became their priority, both cheering from the front row. Their love grew, rooted in shared values. Elizabeth opened up about her fears of losing herself to work. Daniel vowing to keep her grounded. He shared his past, grief over his wife's death, hope for Lily's future, strengthening their trust. Horizon's board, once skeptical, now hailed Daniel as a visionary. Sir Henry Baxter attended the gala, toasting their engagement. You've built a legacy, he told them. Elizabeth and Daniel exchanged vows in their hearts, promising to protect Horizon and their family. One evening, as they watched Lily sleep, Elizabeth spoke softly. You changed me, Daniel. Success means nothing without love. He kissed her forehead. And you gave me a reason to dream again. Seattle's skyline glowed, a symbol of their journey. Horizon was a global titan, but their true legacy was Lily's laughter, their shared meals, their unbreakable bond. As they planned their wedding, Kane's threats loomed, but Daniel and Elizabeth were ready. They'd faced crises and won, their love a fortress. The gala's lights faded, but their future shone bright, a testament to courage, trust, and the family they'd built from a janitor's cart and a CEO's dream. The journey of Elizabeth Harper and Daniel Rivera teaches us that true success transcends titles, wealth, or corporate triumphs. It lies in seeing the unseen, in recognizing the potential hidden in the quiet corners of our world. Daniel, a janitor scrubbing floors, carried a brilliance that reshaped an empire, proving that talent knows no hierarchy. Elizabeth, a billionaire CEO, learned that vulnerability, trusting a stranger, admitting love, is the ultimate strength. Their story shows that crises, whether a failing deal or a child's hospital bed, reveal what matters: connection, trust, and the courage to risk everything for those we love. They built Horizon Innovations into a global force, not by chasing profit, but by forging bonds across cultures, proving that relationships are the true currency of success. Lily, their heart, reminds us that family grounds ambition, that no deal outweighs a child's smile. Their love, born in chaos, teaches us to embrace the unexpected, to let go of control and trust the heart's quiet voice. Most profoundly, they show that anyone, a janitor, a CEO, a child, can change the world by believing in others. This isn't just a story, it's a mirror. We all walk past Daniels every day, colleagues, strangers, whose gifts we overlook. We all face Elizabeth's choice, to stay safe or to risk trust. And we all carry Lily's hope, yearning for love to anchor us. Look around you today. See the unnoticed, the coworker who listens, the stranger who smiles, the child who dreams. Champion their talents, no matter how small they seem. Build bridges with trust, not contracts. Take a risk on someone's potential, as Elizabeth did for Daniel, and watch them soar. Your belief could spark a legacy, a love, a future. Start now, see the invisible, and change the world one heart at a time.